The black hole has been a historical problem with applying to jobs, which to me feels like a problem you guys are solving. Talk about candidate experience, feedback, maybe even retention, because it's been a positive experience from day one. What are you guys doing to eliminate the black hole more so than you already have?
One of those is being able to have our conversational assistant answer the questions that job seekers have. And what do they ask about? They ask about their interview. They ask about what's the status of my application, and be able to give clear answers to those questions. Where am I in the process, and how can I do that?
Yeah.
And so that's the core. I can remember many years ago, I won an award for candidate experience because I sent a thanks but no thanks email to every candidate, and I was so embarrassed.
Did you manually do it?
No, it was literally an automated email that went out, and they were like, "Well, this is clearly award worthy," and I'm like, I can't even. I put that in a drawer. I'm like, this is embarrassing for our industry. So the bar is not particularly high in some of that, but being able to answer the candidate questions, give them feedback. And then another part of our system is reminding people to do things. Like, managers aren't bad people, they are busy people.
Yeah.
And so being able to remind managers, hey, you need to follow up with Susie, or give us a yes or a no on Joey, be able to get them to do things in the process by continuing to push that through, has been helpful to be sure that people are doing what they're supposed to doing, because they do get busy on all sides.
Yeah. So when you're doing this, again, start as a chatbot, conversational AI, you've started to now build the entire system, right? So you own that entire system. So it's much easier for you to go through all those processes. Not to mention, if you got the ATS, there's a lot of data that you can pull from there to learn off of. And not to mention Olivia, at that point, she can start messaging back with real relevant information. That process, how hard was it? Because obviously you guys are also partnered with other applicant tracking systems. So in the Venn diagram of things, there's some good, good or bad, competitive challenges that are there. Talk about that and how important it was to go down funnel and own that process.
Yeah, sort of one of the secrets to that is it's actually not that hard to go from building all the other things to building an applicant tracking system. There's not that much left to go, and I think we've seen lots of folks recently that go the extra.
You can say commodity. It's okay.
Yeah. Go the extra 20%, and the reality is, I don't really care if we're going to operate on top of Workday or SAP or Oracle or anyone else. Or if they don't exist at the sort of the lower end of the market, and we've got to do some of that work to have the jobs and some of the other things that would exist in that space. I don't care at all. Like for us, it is being able to, how do we get work done? How do we help recruiters and managers? And how do we help candidates get things through the system? So the reality is not that hard. We had to build some extra plumbing to make that happen when there's not a system to sit on top of. But the reality is being able to have the automation is what matters, and the conversational experience with a candidate and with a manager is what matters, because people can communicate quickly and taking out the friction of that. And one of the things I love the most about our platform for managers is you probably both remember having to schedule these massive trainings for hiring managers on a system rollout. I was recalling a colleague that's like, I'm going to teach my 10,000 stores how to use Brass Ring. And I'm like, I'm calling sick that day.
That sucks.
And some of the things that some of the older systems that just didn't have the interface that were really suited for the restaurant retail world. And so being able to have that be the experience, whether we're the ultimate system sitting in that seat or whether we're on top of something else, the integrations have gotten so much easier that focusing on the experience is what's mattered.
Paradox, watching you grow over the years, it seems like the direction tends to be very customer focused. Customers want this and enough customers want it, that's what we're going to build. So in asking about the future, what this looks like 5-10 years, we hear a lot about co-pilots. What I'm hearing is, at some point, is Paradox my co-pilot for my entire work existence? So you haven't talked about onboarding, but I have to think that, okay, I've been with Olivia since day one. Why can't I be with her in my entire work life? Is that where this is going? Talk about the future of what you're looking at.
Yeah, you are right that we spend a lot of time with our clients, and that relationship is the sacred one for us to understand what what pain they feel and how we can help with that. And at the same time, we do split some time about just skating where the puck is going. So what are things based on new technologies and where that looks to try to anticipate needs and give a point of view to what they're doing. The question about are we continuing in the process is yes. We've gotten that from the early days. Olivia was so helpful. Can she help me in some of the critical
benefits?
Yeah, some of the critical first 90 days, right? At a restaurant or a retailer. Can Olivia help me with that? Can we do some basic communication? How was your first day? How are things going with your manager? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Right. Again, the medium there is really important through SMS, through WhatsApp. The deskless workers that don't get an email address on their first day, how do we continue to communicate with them? And we see that as a space that's really interesting for the long term, is how do we think about not only changing the short time you're in a recruiting process, sometimes 6 minutes or 3 days, but also then how do we think about the critical touch points that help a manager answer questions, those types of things. And the future is very bright there. There's lots of space to be able to think about what might exist with AI there.
Let's talk about the scale and interactions, because that's key. I mean, a human can only have so many interactions a day. There's only 24 hours in the day, and I'm not going to work 24 hours. Olivia can work all the time, and she, at this point, chatbot, conversational AI, scalable. So talk about some of the numbers that are out there with regard to scale and interactions.
Yeah, that's it. You mentioned I started my career as a recruiter. I used to do like open interviews, and if I did 20 interviews in a day, like I would go home like just sweating, tired. Like, oh, that was a really tired day. And if you've ever stood at a hiring event all day, like your feet are sore, like wow, that's actually really tiring to be like on all day doing that. Olivia doesn't have that problem. So we scheduled, for example, 16 million interviews last year. Did screening of hundreds of millions of candidates and answered over 50 million questions last year. So those interactions are significant, and that's what the magic is, right? It's about scale and how do we take what used to be a lot of transactional work and automate those parts. And you know this, the paradox for which we're named is that you use technology to connect with people. And so we're not trying to automate the decision. I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong in AI. Yeah. It's just they're thinking about the wrong problem first. Yeah. Is they start with, oh, how do we make better hiring decisions with AI? Yeah. And I think I look at a lot of companies' processes. I'm like, why don't we start hiring in under 60 days, and then we'll think about how to hire with AI. But we can clear out all the boring stuff, all the logistics. We can clear out all the little micro conversations that have to happen for screening or job scoping or coordinating, and use conversational AI to do that, and just focus on connecting people for now. And then there may be a time when in AI where we'll start to augment those or make some of those decisions. And
you're doing this asynchronously and or synchronously, right? So again, humans aren't really great at both of those.
Right, exactly. And thinking about how to scale from that perspective. Yeah.
So talking about how tiresome it is for employers to hire, it's also tiresome for job seekers to apply to jobs. And just like employers are finding ways to create automation and efficiencies around that, we're seeing more and more job seeker tools to make that efficient, right? Applying to thousands of jobs automatically. How do you look at that challenge? Do you combat it? Do you embrace it? How do you feel, or what do you think? How do you think about the onslaught of bots that are going to be applying to jobs? There probably already are in many cases.
Yeah. The crux of that is we're going to need to find new ways to find signal. We're going to need to figure out. We're going to have to find new ways. I don't think anyone's going to write a resume, probably even today, that isn't written with some assistance from ChatGPT or some other AI model, right? Writing a resume sort of sucks. Yeah. And so we've got an AI written resume, often an AI read resume, and then lots of coordination done by AI as well. And so the question then becomes, how do we find signal in that, and how do we start to distill those things? I think some of that will come into a renaissance for assessments, and man, there are some really great assessments. There are some really terrible assessments, and so thinking about how do I find out what the essence of this person is, how well they match this job, without giving them a whole bunch of work to do, and how do I get the signal as quickly as possible? And I think the scale problems will be real, and companies will find that automation is because job seekers are using so much automation is the only way that they can handle the volume
Scale,
there.
yeah.
And then new parts are going to be needed to how do we find signal? How do we make better decisions?